So, how long has it been since our last
That's a good question. I'm sure I
episode?
have it
I think
saved.
it's almost been like
It's probably been exactly a year, to be
yeah.
honest. I have it saved here, probably.
I guess yeah, the date that we're recording
Last
this, the date that we're recording this is May 12th, 2023. And we did a podcast last year for Pavin's, was it an English project or something?
Yes, sir.
And well, we are
Yeah, it was May 20th
yeah,
of last year. So what is it today? Like
May
some,
12th.
yeah, so like 8 days off from exactly a year.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just thought it would be a fun idea to have our thoughts recorded because obviously, like now that we're working together, we should be talking through things regularly, anyways. But I think it's also kind of cool to be able to look back and, you know, if either of us gets successful, then it would be cool for other people to be able to like look back and be like, oh, this is what they were thinking like at this exact moment. And I think like I don't know, kind of like Alex Hormozy, how he's like, I wish Bezos and Elon Musk had documented their journeys. Like I'm trying to do that for the rest of us. I think that's kind of a cool thing. But like imagine him recording himself at like 18. How crazy would that have been? You know? So yeah, we'll start with we have some guiding questions, but Pavin has been at UBC for the last couple months now, almost a year, and yeah, he's home now. So I don't know, how's that transition been?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, it's been pretty interesting. It wasn't, first term was definitely pretty chill, to be honest. Like, everyone was like, oh, it's going to be so crazy. Like, you're going to go into university and it's like so much harder than high school. And it was chill. Second term was something else, but it wasn't even that bad, honestly. It's just, I think engineering is just one of those things where it's like, it's not how well you do, it's how less bad you fail.
Right.
So I think it's just a different standard. Like for our second term for our linear algebra class, the final average was like 46 for the class on the, like our final exams. So it's like literally, and then I think I got like a 57 on the exam or so. I don't know. It wasn't fantastic, but I did better than the average and I turned out fine. So
Yeah.
it's just different.
So okay, I mean, this is already getting to one of my gripes with school. Like the fact that they judge it on a scale of you're right or you're wrong or you fail or you pass. It's like they judge you on like a binary scale, but I mean in the real world, like let's say you're doing cold outbound, it's not failing or succeeding. It's a continuum of how well you do it or how not good you do it. It's not like you just fail or succeed. It's like, okay, well, I did it, but it wasn't great. So then you improve over time. It's like, you go through that continuum and get better. So, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, no, definitely. I can't remember which teacher I was talking to. Someone was talking about it, and they're like, "There's a difference between getting like 60%, and it's like it depends. Like basically, the analogy he gave was like you're trying to fly a plane, and it's like if your pilot got a 60% on their flight test, right? They've passed. But like imagine it's like three parts where it's like takeoff, cruise, and landing. And imagine they got like 2/3 of that, and then like they can't land the plane, but they got 60%. Like, how are you? Yeah, you're a certified pilot, but you can't fly a plane because you can't land the plane.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those things where it's like that's where you're talking about. It's just like, well, yeah, like you got a grade, but like what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
It's like you can't really tell. It could like you could be really good at one part, but then like not have a clue how to do another part, and there's no way to tell. So yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So from my understanding, like you're in university for engineering right now, and how many years do you have in total?
Okay, well, I mean, I just got the email yesterday for engineering physics, and that one extends the degree by 1 year for sure. So it would be 5 years at minimum. So that's what we're looking at. So I mean, like 4 more because I've already gotten the first.
Right. And do you think that, like at the end of that, is it gonna be like a good return on the money that you spent?
I think so. I think engineering is by far the most return on investment you will get out of any bachelor's degree that you can take at the moment. I think if you take a bachelor's of science, you're most likely at the very least looking at getting a master's or doing something else. For engineering, you can basically get a job right out of bachelor's, which is pretty rare at this point.
So what would be like your dream job? Do you know?
start my own business. So
Fair enough.
yeah,
Yeah. Because I think I remember you saying last year that you were like, you liked the way Musk ran his companies. Um, so, I mean, that would be a cool opportunity. But I mean, dude, a lot of stuff has happened with him over the past year. Like it's been pretty crazy to see. I don't know exactly what the timeline was for when he took over Twitter, but that happened recently. So that's kind of funny. And now he actually just announced that he's hired a new CEO for SpaceX and Twitter. So he'll be kind of just directing things now. Yeah, he's a busy guy. He's trying to change the world, which I always respect. But he also does some questionable things.
that's true. Yeah. It's going to be interesting because I feel like a lot of the success in all of his companies has been mostly because he's so hands-on. And that's what I really, like, that's what I was pointing out last year. Even I remember I was talking about how he's like so hands-on and like down, like on the ground with the people that actually do everything. And that's why he knows what's happening and what he actually needs to do to improve the business. Whereas a lot of people who just sit at the top and direct, they don't really know what's going on. And so for that reason, I think he's seen a lot of success in all of his businesses. So it's going to be interesting if he's putting in CEOs and kind of, taking hands off at least a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, dude, it's so hard to predict what's going to happen in the next, I mean, 10 years, let alone 1 year, you know? Like, who would have thought that from last year that ChatGPT and AI would be like the main thing that everyone's, I don't know if I would say worried, but yeah, probably worried about. Um, I mean, for context, ChatGPT 4, they're on right now. That's the one that's released to the public, at least, for a paid version. We've definitely contemplated getting it for the business here. Because obviously, if it can just save you time in mundane tasks, compiling data, writing repetitive things, cold outreach, could definitely be worth that $20 investment. I think it obviously would be, but just depends on how you use it and how you can learn how to build the prompts. But I also think, if someone listens to this like 10 years down the road, like, what version of GPT are they going to be on? And, is Chat GPT just the MySpace of AI? Like what else is coming down the road? I'm sure there's companies that we don't even know of right now that are going to be take over and be the Instagram, the Facebook. So I don't know. What do you think?
yeah, it's a really good point. I think so. There's definitely a lot that can be going on. There's a lot to do with, I think the biggest growth that we're going to see right now, I would assume, is mostly because they've pretty, I wouldn't say perfect, but they've gotten pretty far with photo generation with artificial intelligence. But I think video generation is going to be next. Um, we've already got audio and there's been photo, but video is I think the next big one that's going to happen, and I've seen quite a lot of work being done there, so that should probably be coming next. Because it's kind of they've okay, I wouldn't say they've maxed out the language model, but they have fed a lot of data already to it. Like we're pretty far in. It's obviously going to get better, but I don't think it's going to be like from just throwing more data at it. It's probably going to be other things. There's going to be refinements in terms of what it can do,
Right.
things like that. Probably connecting it to the internet, maybe like officially. Obviously, there's Auto GPT that can do that, but I think if they're natively can have a better way to connect to the internet. And I think there also should be. I think they at least I'd hope they'd be working on some sort of way where it can actually validate and give you a confidence score of how
Mm-hmm.
accurate it thinks the information that it like it's providing, and how maybe it's not accurate, or if it can find sources, that sort of thing. Because I mean, even if you think about how you and I would search for something, we can pretty quickly figure out how accurate something might be based on if it's you can find it at multiple sources, etc. There's pretty easy ways to do that. So maybe something like that would be interesting, because I don't think it'd be too difficult. But yeah, I think something like that would be
That's
cool.
interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know. I feel like the language model could still get pretty crazy, like in terms of how it relays data and how it can compile it and how it can respond to prompts. That's all probably things that it can improve on a lot. And I think like I don't know, like I wonder if I think we're already limited. Most people would already be limited right now on how they formulate their questions to GPT. Like even people who have just used it once or twice compared to me who have used it a bit, but like not as much as some of those tech gurus, I'm sure, right? And already the difference between me and someone who has just touched it once is huge. And they're like, "Oh, that's how you talk to it?" And it's like, well, yeah, you just make a statement to it because it doesn't have feelings. You don't have to ask it like, please do this. You're like compile, a list of 100 this or that. And give me 5 variations of this. And um, but yeah, I think actually like a percentage score of like how right the information is. That's an interesting thing. I wonder if they've thought about implementing that.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. And the other thing is that's kind of, I think the next big thing that they're probably going to be worried about. I mean, there was a lot of prominent leaders in the space who were talking about that we need some sort of regulation for AI, and I think that's going to be one of those things that definitely is going to have to happen at some point. It's going to be interesting to see how that comes into play. Hopefully, it's some main organization because it's going to be one of those things with how the internet's regulated, where it's going to have to be across borders. It's going to be something global. So it's just going to be really interesting to see who comes up with that and how it's going to be implemented.
Yeah, I think I talked to you about this, but I had a business idea. Obviously, I'm not gonna do it because I don't have the know-how. Uh, but basically, because of AI and generated videos, deep fakes, all that stuff, um, I think something like some sort of code like inside the metadata of the video where it's like verified real person or verified not AI generated. I think that could definitely be a pretty big thing for starting with like governments and like military stuff where it's like, is this hostage deep faked or something like that? Or the government, like, is this, I don't know, Donald Trump is the first person who's coming to mind. Is this Donald Trump video deep faked? But it's like, again, like I don't know how they would do that because metadata you could only see like if you hit like info on a file, whereas like if it's just being posted to Instagram or TikTok, I don't know, maybe they have like a flag being like this was AI generated content. Like maybe as you're posting it, it like scans the metadata, and then generates some sort of banner at the bottom or top. So I don't know. I think that could potentially be an interesting avenue for developers to
Yeah.
to look at.
I think that's where I think Web3 can come into handy. Because Web3, with NFTs, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, NFTs are useless, which, as of what they've been used for up to this point, they pretty much are, Bored Ape NFTs and all that. It's like, yeah, it's not really useful, particularly to any use case, really. But I think in this type of situation where you can have some sort of NFT verification, which, because that's what it would do, right? It would give you some sort of way to validate whether or not a piece of content is real or not. And I think something like that, because that is what you're talking about, where it will basically show, oh, like, yeah, you can take a, because everyone was always like, oh, I can just take a screenshot of the NFT, but it's like the actual file itself is something where you can say, yes, this isn't like the real thing. And so that's where I think being able to say, oh, this is an actual video rather than a deepfake, there I think something like NFT or something similar to that could be implemented.
That's interesting. Yeah, having like yeah, because it's just same thing. Like NFT is a JPEG image, but video is just an MP4. So having like a NFTified version of an MP4, that's kind of funny to think about. Another thing is that I find funny is like the whole debate with art and how AI just like technically it doesn't have anything original because it just collects data from the internet or the data points it's been given. But so that means that it's taking and combining work of this artist and that artist, and obviously not giving them any credit. And you know, I don't care, but I know that quite a lot of people on the internet have been talking about like what happens when it can make a better Drake song than Drake. What happens when it can make art like this person, Pablo Picasso, but doesn't credit him for the style and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, same with, it'll be soon, it'll be better at us than everything, right? I'm sure there's some exceptions to that, but generalizing, it'll be better at us than everything. Um, so I think like there's a question of, well, okay, how much do we care about the human element of certain things, whether that be like, the sales process. How much do we care that we're talking to a real person on the other end? Or, take sports, for example. How much do we care that the sports that we're watching are real people and not robots or AI? Because, you know, there's a story that when AI was able to beat a person at chess for the first time, everyone was like, "Oh, no one's gonna watch chess anymore because an AI can beat a person every time, right?" But it's like, well, who's gonna watch an AI versus an AI? No one. So then that leaves the question, and people still watch chess, not me, but there is, I mean, quite a large following of chess, and people watch it still, even though an AI is better at it than us. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, so it's not just being the best at something. There has to be something more than that. So, I mean, maybe it's people like watching the human element. They care about the person behind the strategy or the skill. So, yeah, I don't know if we'll ever get to a time where it's like we just don't even watch real people anymore. We just watch robots. Like, I don't think that's the same because we have some sort of innate connection between each other, you know?
Yeah. I think okay, so there's some interesting points there. I think sports is one of those things where I don't. There's a reason we watch sports, and the main reason that we watch sports, at least that I think, is that we like to see like the human spirit, and we like to see what other people are able to achieve, like at the highest level. And I think for that reason, like with the chess example that you gave, is that we still like to see like an actual person at that highest level be able to compete and be other people, not like an AI. We don't really care because the AI we understand is like it's just working on algorithms. It knows what it's doing, right? But in terms of, I think the main reason that sports are so alluring to us is just that seeing that somebody actually compete at a high level. I think that's the main draw. Like that's the reason people watch the Olympics. It's like you get to see the top of the top for some time. So yeah, I think that would be the big thing. But yeah, I mean for sales, I guess it just depends. Like I think our generation, like at least most people younger, I don't think they care that much. I think we kind of used to, with automated chats for support line or whatever. Like we don't really care all that much. But I think probably some older folks would probably want real people. So, but if it works better, then I mean, does it really matter, right?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, I mean, it's quite obvious to me that an AI could instantly be fed tons of data of the best sales calls from everyone, and it would automatically be better than me or you or even the best salespeople. It could answer questions better. It could overcome objections better because it's heard everything before, right? So that leaves the question like, okay, well, is it more important to be talking to a real person and like hear the conviction in the person's voice? Because conviction is the strongest thing that sells, right? Like if you don't have conviction in your own product, then it's pretty hard to sell it. Or do you care about this AI knows the perfect thing to say, the perfect way to convince you? Like, I don't know, there might be good things and bad things about both. Like,
Yeah. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I think we could get to a point where an AI could also replicate human emotion pretty well. Obviously, we're not there yet, not even close. But I think as time goes on, I think there's a chance that it could understand more the context of the sentence that it's trying to say, and figure out throughout like the whole sequence that it's saying as to what the emotions that it should be talking about, and
right.
how to convey those. So it could be interesting.
That just reminded me of something funny. I've been seeing these videos of Snapchat AI pop up on my Instagram and stuff, and dude, that is the worst feature I have ever seen a platform introduce in maybe ever. I hate Snapchat AI with a passion, and everyone I know hates Snapchat AI. And dude, I was saying it the other day to my friend, like Snapchat AI must get the most amount of bullying in the planet. Like everyone who I know talks to just like feeds it the most. I can't even say it. Like it's terrible. Um, but it's provided me with some funny jokes. So
Yeah, it's pretty bad. The thing that pisses me off the most about is anytime I type like ain't or something, it always just tries to mention itself, and it's like the most annoying thing ever. But yeah, it's I don't know why it's in there, and the fact that it has like visual recognition. I don't know if you've ever tried to actually send it a real snap. It will recognize what's in the picture, and if you ask it, do you have visual recognition? It denies having visual recognition. So I don't know who programmed the thing, but it's
It
kind of questionable.
it lies to your face, but sometimes it also messes up. So like you'll ask it directly if it has like, did you see this like in the snap? And it'll be like, no, I can't see your snaps. But then like it'll like vaguely mention something that it wouldn't know unless it saw the snap, and you're like, what?
It's not even vague. I'll send it a picture of a water bottle and be like, "Oh, you look thirsty," or like, "Are you thirsty or something?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course you saw what was in the like." It's so
Yeah,
stupid.
exactly.
And like, I was reading like other accounts of people like talking about it, and I think it also takes the location data in with it because apparently people were saying like it was like even though you couldn't even see it in the picture, it could tell where you were, like in its response. So I think it also is fed the location data.
I mean, that makes sense because of all, Snapchat has Snap Maps or whatever it's called, where you can see other people, but
Again, it
it's
denies
just
that it has
creepy.
that either.
Yeah,
So.
that thing is just creepy. And dude, the fact that they made it purple skin is hilarious. Like, it's so obvious that they're trying not to offend anyone and be like super safe. And yeah, like, dude, having an AI with a Bitmoji that just annoys you all day, like, that's the funniest thing. Who came up with that?
Snapchat has the most questionable everything.
I know.
What do they have? They had the Snap drone or whatever it was. They had the Snap spectacles. All of those were completely failed products.
Yeah.
So I don't know who their marketing team is or what they think is a good idea, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's not good.
It's tough. Well, anyways, time to talk about what's been going on with us. So, right now, Pavin just got home from university, and this is the second week that he's been home. So this is the first week he's been helping out with the company, the business, Styles Productions. Um, and yeah, so for me, the last year I have not been in school. Last year and a half almost now. But basically, I've just been. It's allowed me to focus on kind of understanding what it even means to have a business, to work every day by yourself on something. I worked at Best Buy for a little while, up until September of 2022, and then after that, like it was a pretty big decision for me to quit. Like people think that they're like, oh, it's so obvious. Like you already have been doing this for whatever 2 3 years, and you have income coming off of it, but like I don't really see that income as like stable for the next like, it's not like I'm making 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, however much money I was making back then for the foreseeable future. So for me to quit Best Buy, which didn't pay good, and I was just part-time, but it was still definitely stressful, and I did take a lot of time to think about it. And obviously there's like external pressures from, parents and other people being like, oh, you're doing that now? Like you shouldn't have done that, or yeah, So I think a lot of people just assume that it was like the most obvious decision and I should have done it way sooner. And I would say those people, I don't think so. Like I'm glad that I did it when I did it, but honestly, anytime before that, I just don't think I would have been ready to do it. So it started off like as soon as I quit Best Buy, like I was doing journals every day, and I had some really good habits. Just being able to like spend time with myself is also really important. But yeah, I started developing a lot of good habits. I think having like the ability to set your own schedule is definitely a gift and a curse, because you can have the ability to make like a really productive and really awesome schedule that fits how you function, but it's also like, well, you can just blow off that schedule anytime you ever want. Whereas with a full-time job, it's like, okay, no, you're here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and that's that. You go home, work's done, you don't think about it. But with this, it's like every day, all day, you're turned on to the business, and there's no like turning that off. It's like um, clients can text you, clients can call you literally any day, literally anytime. and you don't have to respond, but it still comes through and it's still like, oh yeah, yeah, there's no escaping that. And I guess that's kind of one thing that's also stressful for me right now is like, I'm going up to Kelowna just for a couple days over the long weekend, and it's like I still have to post for my clients. I still have to respond to their calls. I still have to write copy for them. So it's just like, at this point in the business, it's like I don't really have a day where it's like not doing something with it, which is fine. Like, dude, I understand that you have to go through this period of like seriously working if you want to get somewhere. But that's just what I'm experiencing right now. And yeah, so the last year for me, it's been super cool. Up from September till December 31st, like before 2023, I was just kind of like coasting, definitely coasting. Like I was getting some jobs here and there for filming. I was trying out this new thing with social media management because it works so well for Jim, one of my main clients. And so I was kind of testing that out more, seeing if people would actually like it as a service. And then it's actually turned into like what I mainly do now. Like it's my main offer, what I pitch people. I don't pitch people on just like a single project now. It's like always trying to get them on board with like a social media package, so I can have monthly recurring revenue because that's obviously pretty important. And yeah, so January 1st hit, and it wasn't really, I don't know if I would call it a New Year's resolution because I just hate that. And I don't think you should need a date to be able to change. You should just change when you need to. But around January 1st, like I started to pick things up. I was like, all right, I want to make this amount of money in 2023, so I need to make $10,000 this month. And I did it. It's just like, for me, it's like when I'm working towards something, it's like you have this goal and you just need to find a way to do it. And you'll find a way to do it. It's that simple. And obviously, for other people, they need like, to put these really complicated systems in place. Like, okay, I need to do this, this. But it's like, for me, I find that when I have like a big goal, as long as I know that I need to hit this goal and maybe I have like smaller goals underneath it that I need to do, it's actually very easy for me to do that. And I don't know if it's like whatever they call it, the law of attraction or something. I don't know if I necessarily believe in that. But I definitely think that there's something about writing it down, or there's something about just having it in your head, Like it's not it's not luck if you're always thinking about it, if you're always um, pursuing it, because things turn into opportunities. Um, so yeah, I set a goal for myself. I wanted to make $100,000 in 2023. And yeah, we're well above trajectory for that, so that's kind of cool. So January 1st to January 31st, I made 10,000, which was super cool. I was like, dang, this might actually work. Like that's when I realized like, okay, this is cool. Like obviously I know it's not anything crazy, but it just felt um, it kind of validated quitting my old job and kind of pursuing this full time. Um, So I was proud of myself. And from there, it's been relatively steady. Like I said, we're in May, so it's been, whatever, 4 or 5 months. Um, it's been relatively steady. Some months have been like 11, 12,000, 13,000. Some months have been like nine. Um, and this upcoming May should be around 14 if we can pull everything together, which is always the question. And, with Pavin on board now, I'm definitely expecting to have more volume of sales calls and all that sort of stuff. So, we should be able to onboard at least one more person in May. So, yeah, it should be around 14 to 16,000, and that'll be my highest month yet. And we only plan on going up from there. In my goals here, I have um, I would like to be doing 17,000 um, on a normal basis after Pavin is kind of integrated into the business. I think that's very reasonable where we are right now. But yeah, last year's been good, and it's really simple. People think it's so complicated starting a business, but all you need is something to sell and a customer, and you have a business. So it's really those two things, improving on your service or on your product and finding cash flow from customers. So those are the kind of two avenues that we're going to try and improve. What do you think, Pavan?
Yeah, for sure. I just want to go back on a few of the things that you're talking about. One of the first things that you kind of talked about was like having an open schedule, or not open, like but like a schedule that you can kind of make yourself. Is really interesting to me. Like I've always thought about this a lot. Is how much we value. I guess it's just human nature to do so, but how much we value not necessarily like the validation, but like how much more we respect other people's time than we do our own. Like, because you kind of mentioned how, like, yeah, you can make a great schedule, but it just, like, you can blow it off so easily. And to do it for yourself is so much easier. But if you told someone else that you're going to show up somewhere at some time, you're so much more likely to do that. And I don't know, that's always something that's fascinated me and, like, why that is. And I guess it's just that social aspect. I guess we're so, again, actually, I think it's just human nature. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest downfalls of a lot of people is just staying consistent and being able to do that on your own. And I think that's where you were saying like just writing it down. I think if you, like you said, like if you keep it in your head and you've always got it there, and I think that's why if you can see it all the time, it's kind of hard to ignore. If you only just have it in your head and you're like, oh yeah, I'll do this, it's probably not going to happen. But if you've got it written down and you're kind of seeing it, it's going to keep nagging at you. You're going to remember like, oh, I told myself I was going to do that. And then that's where that accountability to yourself comes in, where you're like, yeah, I'm going to go do this. So that's really important. And then you talked about those small habits. And again, especially if you've got your own schedule, it's so important to have those good habits. Like it's those little things. I think David Goggins talked about. So I was just reading his newest book, Never Finished, and he's talking about he's like the biggest thing is like you've got it's not winning the big battles. He's like it's winning every second of every day. It's like if you lose that 1 second, like it can just tumble down so many things. If it's like that 1 second is like picking up your phone, let's just say you pick up your phone and suddenly you've lost an hour because you were doing something that you never needed to do, things like that. So it's like I think it's when you lose in those small seconds, just that split second decision can make a big difference. So I think what you're talking about with writing everything down, all that just comes together just to make yourself accountable to yourself, I think is really big. In terms of building your business, yeah, it's been crazy. I'm really glad that you've kind of refined what you're offering and we've kind of figured out what we want to show and offer to people. So really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever be. I mean, I hope one day I'll be extremely confident in like, you know, the service or product that I offer, and like, I would love to see people that I work for get like 100x return on their investment. Um, so I think like one of the problems that I've been facing with my service is that with social media and like video, it's very hard to quantify the results for someone. And I mean that, what I mean by that is when I make a video or when I make 30 videos a month, they might average 600,000 new interactions for a client. But it's like, okay, the client the client doesn't know exactly how many of those 600,000 people are clicking on a website or then going to buy the masterclass. And even when I talk about this, I'm thinking like, okay, I should put like be tracking those measures, because I think that's something. I think honestly the reason why I haven't been tracking analytics closely is because I'm probably scared to see if it's failing or not. And that obviously probably sounds dumb, but you know it's almost like you have this belief in your service and product that's valuable. And I guess I'm just worried that when I start if I start well, no, when I start tracking analytics on it, that it'll prove like, oh, it's actually not that good, and you need to restructure everything. But I mean, so be it. you know if I have to do that, so be it. So I think that's another thing me and Pavan have talked about, is like we really need to like streamline some of the processes and have a procedure in place. Like, okay, what happens when a client doesn't respond? What happens when a client books a sales call? All those things. It's like, when it's just me in the business, it's like I'm just kind of I just know it in my brain. Like, okay, I know how I want these videos edited because it's always been me doing it. I know how I want these emails formatted because it's always been me learning it and me doing it. But I think when you bring a second person on, whether that be like a partner in a business or an employee, it really makes you think through the things that you're doing. And that's something that I've been finding right now is that, when I tell oh yeah, when I tell Pavan to like, okay, we want to do this and we need to do this, he has to know, first of all, how to do it, and then second of all, how I want it done. And then there also has to be motivation for him to do it. So it's I've never had to think about this before, and it's been really good for me to have to think about like my processes that I do. Like right before he was here this morning, I was thinking like, okay, so after he sends the first cold email and they don't respond, how long do we wait to follow up? Is it 2 days? Is it 3 days? Is it a week? And then like what's the metrics behind that? Like what is the best statistic? Like, okay, 23% of more people respond if you follow up after 1 day. Like those are the type of things that like I didn't have to figure out when it was just myself because I would just do it when I felt like it and I would do what makes sense to me. But I feel like when I tell someone else to do it, I need to know the reasoning behind it because if someone else told me to do it, I would want to know their reasoning behind it. I'm the type of person that definitely I can't just do things like without knowing the why, Like when I used to work at Best Buy, it was like when I'm selling their membership program, which is horrible. Like it's definitely not worth it for 99% of people. It's like I can't push something that I don't believe in and that there's literally no upside. It was not commission, which is crazy. Like I was getting paid minimum wage, no commission for sales. Um, and so it's less, just like, there's no why, there's no motivation for me. Like there's no intrinsic motivation for me to go out and sell. I could be hiding in the back and get the same pay as uh, the person who's selling this home membership the most. And it's just kind of ridiculous, their model. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the exact same position. So yeah, I totally get that. Like, it's like, yeah, like, what's the point? It's like that's the biggest gripe that I've always had in previous sales positions that I've worked at is it's just if I don't believe in the product, I have absolutely like I don't even care if I don't get paid for it. Like, I don't care if I get commission or not. If depending on well, because I was working part time, I was working like a minimum wage job. I don't care.
Yeah.
But obviously, if I was working something bigger, I'd care. But like if I at the very least believe in the like whatever it is, the service product, whatever that we're trying to sell. If I at the very least can say like to even myself, like yes, I would want this myself and would want to recommend this to family and friends. If I can't say that, I'd have absolutely no motivation to sell that thing. And so yeah, like I said, I've worked in those positions as well, and it's like yeah, there's no reason. And I wouldn't do it specifically even if it got commission or not. I don't think that makes a difference. But if you have a belief in your own product, and that's why I think having your own business is so much better because you can it's your own product, you know exactly how it works, you know why you made it, what the pain point is, what the problem it is that it's solving, and you know why it works and who it's for. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think one thing you said, you wouldn't care if it was commission or not, just whether you believed in the product. Well, we were saying earlier, I mentioned earlier that I think conviction is by far the strongest way to sell something because if they hear it in your voice, then they start to believe it. But I think you might have underestimated the power of incentives. There's been tons of stories from people in history who are able to motivate people only through incentives. Like that's really the only way that they can truly make them do something great. And I think that's why I actually had written this down last night. The idea came from Alex Hormozy, but it's like I felt like I really want you to help me with my customer acquisition because that's something that I I struggle with so much and I don't know why. Um, so that's like a huge thing that I want you to help me with. But that was like, okay, well, I want him to feel like when he does this, like he feels a sense of purpose. So I was like, okay, well, how can I do that? And I think the most obvious thing is to set up incentives. And, I feel like we'll definitely talk about this more, but I feel like, if for every client that actually onboards with us on a monthly program, giving you a commission on that, like there's going to be way more, well, incentive for you to sell the service, and go home and look for clients at home. Like, it's not just like you're on the clock from 10 to 6, just working here, and it's like, okay, I go home and it's like completely disconnected from the business. There's no purpose for me to work harder or to do anything else. Obviously, like, you are very intrinsically motivated, and you don't really need other things to push you, which is something that you've developed. Obviously, you weren't born with that, but and I've seen it develop. But I also think it's also important for you to feel like what you're doing is worth it, and so that's why I wanted to, like, give you an incentive, like a bonus for every customer you acquire. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's a pretty loaded um, idea slash discussion. I think I would say probably at least 95% of the population, I think having monetary incentive is very, very important. Um, yeah, like I said, for me, it's like, I don't know why, it's just way more of a, like, do I actually believe in the thing? Like, for when I first started with you, I didn't even think I was going to get paid. I was like more than happy to just show up because I was just like, this is interesting. I find this cool. And I was just treating it as if it were even my own business. Like, I didn't think of it as like someone else's business. I was like, yep, this is great. This is cool. I'm totally down. So yeah, like that's like even like it's funny that you were mentioning like if you only come here from 10 to 6. Like I've been working on this all the time in terms of learning editing and all sorts of things, like doing all that. Even like during the year, I'm sure you remember, I was always, trying to help you out with whatever I can. It's like those things. Is like I just don't really care. Like obviously, monetary incentive is important because everyone needs money. Like it's kind of important, but it's not like that alone would be something to get me to do something, which is really interesting. Like I don't know why that is. It just for whatever reason I'm very much more inclined if I believe in whatever it is. Um, but yeah, I would say, like I said, I think for 95% of the population, I don't think that would be necessarily true. Um, and the reason that I really don't believe in it for sale, well, okay, like I do, but I think the reason that I think the conviction and the belief in the product is more important than the commission incentive that you can put behind it is because I've seen it at least as a lot of times it leads to a lot of pushy sales. Like it gets really pushy salespeople just trying to like absolutely get you to just buy it in any means necessary. And I've never been behind that. I think if like, whoever it is, if you can show that they have, and that's where that conviction comes in. It's like if you believe in the product and you truly understand the product and why it's there and why they can benefit from it, and you can show them that value, there's no reason to ever have to push them. They will understand why you're selling it to them, and they will understand why it is you've come to them and why you believe in it so much. And I think if you have that belief, I think that's the biggest thing that gets people to buy, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely, like, yeah, the pushy the pushy salesman. I think an ideal case is where you have both. You have belief in the product, and you also get paid really well, which I feel like is what happens with Alex Hormozzi's business. Like, he always talks about how his salespeople can make millions of dollars a year, right? And I think it's so cool that he's like willing to bring other people up with him and not just like try and keep it all for himself. And he's definitely, I don't even think I knew about him last year when we recorded the podcast, which is crazy to think. Like, he has by far become my biggest mentor. I'm saying that in quotation marks because I don't know him, but um, like just the way he talks about money and the way he talks about people and psychology of people, it's just, it makes everything so simple. And his frameworks that he provides, like, it seriously helps me think about my own business and how to improve it. And that's why I said earlier, like, I think it's actually simple. Like, it's a lot simpler than people imagine because I've been listening to him, and he makes it simple. So yeah, I definitely respect what he does, where he knows he has a really good product and he knows our service and he knows that it helps people a lot. And on top of that, his salespeople get paid a ton of money for commission. I think that's just like the ideal solution. um, and so yeah, I definitely like hearing you say that you were wanting to you were wanting to do it no matter what is it's kind of crazy. Like I don't know anyone else who would who would want to do that, And yeah, I don't know why that is. Like, is that the way you've always been, or is that something that you've always been helpful, or did you learn that from someone? Like, what is that?
That's a good question. I think this is a really, really good question. I honestly don't know if I even know the answer to that. But yeah, like straight up, I did not think I was getting paid when I first showed up. I was like, okay, this is cool. I think for me, especially like right now where I am in life, I think I just view almost everything as just learning opportunity. For me, no matter good or bad, I just think of it like, okay, well, either I learn something or I gain something or hopefully both. And yeah, especially, I think the other thing is too, is I'm just so interested in business. Like, I just think it's for many reasons. I think the biggest thing for that is I think that the fact that business solely revolves around solving problems, I think is really interesting to me. And the fact that you can, help so many people and also help yourself, I think is really interesting. And I don't know, it's just always been interesting to me. So I think the biggest reason I wanted to come on was like the fact that I can immediately come into something where I can actually make a difference. I think is the biggest thing, because if I could have gone and worked somewhere else, and it's just like I've never really gotten into, like, okay, here we're gonna go into a complete tangent here, but a lot of bigger businesses are just not managed well. I'm sure you can agree with that. At least for like the lower, if you're on like the lower end of the corporate ladder per se, it's never goes well. Like, the managers aren't really trained to know what to do. Nobody really knows what's going on. And you're, no matter, like what you were saying with like, it didn't make a difference if you were a great seller or if you sat in the back and did absolutely nothing. You're gonna get paid exactly the same. It doesn't make an absolute difference if you use your brain cells or not. Like, you could literally do absolutely nothing and still get paid, right? Or you could be a great person at that business and still get the exact same recognition, essentially. And so for that, I think that was probably one of the biggest things reason I wanted to come here, is I knew, since this is a one-person team, it's like I know everything that I do will absolutely will make a difference no matter what. Like, every little thing. And that to me is, I think, the biggest thing. And that's the reason I want to start my own business, is because it's like, I want to be able to do something where I know that whatever effort I put in is going to have an output. Whereas if you work somewhere, especially like I said on the lower side of things, is like, it doesn't make a difference whether or not you're excellent or a poor performer. It just doesn't make a difference. And that's always just never made sense to me. And so for that reason, I think, and like what you were saying too, like, you're on 24/7. You could technically absolutely just work for like 5 days straight if you really wanted to, and you would get output from that. Whereas if you, like you said, where you work for someone else, it's like, okay, you work 8 hours a day for 5 days, and other than that, there's no upside for you to do anything else. And for that to me is really interesting, where if you put more in, you get more out. And I just really like that linear. It's not obviously not linear, because you can put in a lot in for a long time and then see all the returns at the end, which is why you should practice delayed gratification and all that fun stuff. But like, yeah, I just think that it's interesting that you can actually see a difference with the input you put in.
Yeah, it's definitely true. Like, the more you put in your own business, the more you get out. But obviously, you have to be focusing on the right things. A lot of people focus on, it's I forget who said it, but the 80/20 rule, where 80% of the things that you do don't really matter, but the 20% that you need to be doing matter
The more.
all the more. Yeah. And I think that's something that, like, we we are definitely going to hone in on, is like doing the 20% that seriously matters, which is customer acquisition, customer fulfillment, and then improving the product. Like,
Yeah.
realistically, what else is there?
I was just about to say, I think the 80/20 rule, if it's really, really boiled down, is just look at things more simpler. just keep on zooming out and zooming out and zooming out till you can see like, okay, what is actually being done that's doing anything. And then once you can realize that, then you can start to make sense of what it is you actually need to do.
Yeah, you zoom out so far, and it's like, all right, well, I need a customer. That's what you need. That's literally it. Okay, well, how do you get a customer? Okay, well, you have to reach out to people. You have to make content, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it becomes really simple. That actually reminds me of something. I've been using this trick. Again, learned from Alex, but he calls it the grandfather frame. You might have heard of this, but basically, it's like when you're going into like a really important decision, whether that be in your personal life, in your business, doesn't really matter, but you just zoom out on your life, and you can either imagine like you're 80 years old, and you look back on your life on that moment that you think right now is so stressful, and you realize that it really didn't matter anyways, whether you did this or that, you were gonna make it anyways. And I think like a lot of people really don't have that perspective. It's like they're so caught up in the moment, like, oh, am I gonna mess up this call with a client, and am I gonna lose a client that could potentially be worth $10,000? It's like, you know, chill out, zoom out. What I like to do is I close my eyes, and I think of like a bird's eye view of me from the top, and then I keep zooming out like over top my house, over top of Chilliwack where we live, over top of the the lower mainland, like keep going up and extrapolate. You can see the world, then you see the universe, and then you zoom back in and you're like, wow, it doesn't even matter. And I think that's been something that's definitely helped me in stressful situations, like before going to like meetings and stuff. It's like, come on, this isn't that serious. You need to chill.
It's that's such a I've like that alone I've thought about so much about like this gets into like so many like different philosophical questions, but it's just like like because where you were talking about how you like just zoom out to like basically the entire universe, it's like when you really think about it, like really nothing matters.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
realistically nothing you do or say or whatever, it doesn't matter. I was watching an Alex Ramosi like clip as well where he was talking about, I think he was talking about the queen, and he's like, when's the last time you thought about the queen? She's been dead, like she was such a big, like, yeah, of course, like is it like when have you thought about the queen after she died? It's like, okay, if you haven't thought about her, who do you think's gonna think about you after you're dead? Like no one. Realistically, nothing you do, say, well, like nothing's gonna matter at the end. Like no matter how popular or famous or whatever, like it's really interesting to me because everyone always talks about legacy and like all these things, and I think it's, for me at least, I look at legacy as in more of like, what do I believe and what do I want to make an impact on and what do I care about? Like that's really all it comes down to. I don't see legacy as in like, oh, what are people going to remember me as? Because it's like realistically, if you zoom out enough, no one's going to remember you ever. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, for me, it's more like, okay, well, what do I want to impact? And I think that's a fine way of looking at it. But then there's some people who look at legacy as like, how are people going to remember me? It's like, no one's going to remember you. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
I mean, even your own family, like I don't even know the name of my great grandparents. Like genuinely, I don't know. Um, yeah, it's a cool thing to think about. And yeah, legacy is like, it's so overrated. And I think I genuinely think, this is me being real, like people who are obsessed with legacy are scared of dying. They're scared of being forgotten. And that's a huge insecurity, Like, they are so centered on themselves. They need themselves to live on, you know. I think that's just interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just, yeah, death is just one of those interesting things. For me, it's always been like, you know, first off is always to just think like, if you were to die like tomorrow, let's just say, like,
Yeah.
just always think about like, like at the end of the day, because like you were talking about how you make decisions. For me, a lot of times it's like, if you were to die tomorrow, what would you? There's two ways to think about it. Because your way is like zoom out, it's super insignificant, and the other way is also to think about, okay, like if you were to die today or tomorrow, like what is the decision you like? What would you have wanted to do? And it kind of depends on. I find for personal things, sometimes looking at it that way is like, is this really the last thing you want to do? You know, especially if you're like upset with someone or something and you're like, oh, like, I'm gonna be petty and just like not talk to them. And like sometimes I'll reframe it in my mind. I'm like, what if you like never saw this person again? Like, is this really the last thing you want to like be remember of them or them to remember of you? And then you're like, oh, maybe it's like it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So it's just different ways of framing things, I think.
I think they're very similar. Like the same with the situation if your friend got mad at you and you're having a falling out, and then you zoom out and you realize that problem is so stupid anyways. Like
Well, okay, yeah. See, here's the thing. It's like, yeah. It just kind of depends. Because the way when I zoom out, the thing that I think about is like that it's insignificant and it doesn't matter, as in like, who cares? Whereas if I zoom in like that, where it's like, okay, if this is like the last thing ever, then it's more like, okay, like what would I want to do if this is the last thing I ever do? So for me, it's a little bit different. I don't know if it.
I think it's just our brains working different.
Yeah. I think. I don't know.
I think we both get to the same point.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Well, that was fun. So what's happening in the business right now? We kind of said we are definitely working on customer acquisition. Right now, Pavin's getting trained up in editing. He's taking a course that he definitely paid for. And yeah, he's doing great. Obviously, he said he's been working not just at my place when he's here in the studio, but also at home. And I think it genuinely is fun to learn how to edit. Like it's a cool skill to have. It's creative, it's technical, and he's obviously really good with computers already. So it's not too much of a learning curve for him, which is great. I had someone who I was trying to train up, and it was really a struggle trying to teach them like, how do you turn on a computer? And it's like, dude, come on, we're done. So it's been really fun to have someone who's like super intelligent, who can actually solve his own problems. Because I think like genuinely when I'm trying to, when he leaves, sounds like we're breaking up, but when he leaves me and I'm gonna have to find someone else, like, dude, I need to find someone who's like insanely good at problem solving, is really good at learning and adapting. And it's like you don't find that very often, especially now. And I was talking to my parents about that, and they're like, you're 18. Why do you even have to think about those things? Like those aren't things that a normal 18-year-old should be thinking about.
I think about that all the time.
Yeah. And oh, for me?
No, just like personally too. Like, because like it's just, I don't know who else. I think it was David Goggins again. He was talking about, he's like, it's so easy to be good nowadays. He's because like everyone's just bad. Like no one can stay disciplined. Nobody can stay focused anymore. Like it's really not that difficult. If you can just show up and do something consistently, you're already ahead of, I would say probably at least 80 to 90% of the population today, like, which is insane to me. If you use your phone for less than like 3 hours a day, you're probably in the top like 5% probably, which isn't even that much if I really think about it. But like
for people under 40, like probably top 5.
Yeah, like that, to me that is just mind-boggling. Like, and this was crazy to me in like university too. I'd be sitting in like lectures and stuff, and people are just on TikTok, Instagram, just scrolling the whole time, and I'm like, what is going on? Like you can't even sit still and like listen to someone for 50 minutes. Like that's wild to me. And yeah, I think like it's just gonna get harder and harder, and especially as a business owner, that's one of those important things to think about is like, who are you like bringing in, and you're hoping that they'll be capable of doing what you want them to do, and that's a big question.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you just said, you probably have to find someone that's in the top 5 to 3 percentile.
Yeah.
Like why do?
And then beyond that, then you also have to think about, is this person aligning with your values? Are they caring? Are they respectful? Are they gonna not be stupid and like scare off your customers? Or are they good at problem solving? And then like so many other things.
Honestly, all those things are probably more important than coming into the job with a skill.
Correct.
Like, I didn't care if you knew how to edit or knew how to do a cold email. All I cared about was that you knew how to problem solve and that you weren't stupid.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's
true. I think the biggest thing is just having discipline to be consistent and to believe in something and to be able to stick with it. I think is probably going to be the most difficult thing to find at this point. And like what you were talking about, like being trainable, it reminds me of that clip of Mr. Beast. Like, have you heard of how he hired someone and basically cloned himself essentially by like training them to be him? And the only thing he was looking for was somebody who's trainable and who has passion, and that's it. And like someone who can be consistent. And then all he had to do was just have them shadow him for, I think, what was it, like 6 months or something, a year?
Crazy.
Something like that. Like completely just shadow him. And then now he basically just like, he's Mr. Beast essentially. And I think it's like those, that's basically, I think, an ideal person for your business would be someone who you could do that. Obviously, you wouldn't do that exactly, but this is kind of what you're looking at.
Yeah, well, actually, here's an interesting thing. I'm sure, Mr. Huge respect for Mr. Beast. Like, what he's doing, like, he's going to be so incredibly wealthy and use it for good. Like, he's definitely going to be a centibillionaire, which is crazy to think about, like, for a creator, starting off where he started off. Like, he's only 24.
Yeah.
What?
And like listening to his story of how he was in college and how he would just like sit in his car. He just stopped going to class. He'd just sit in his car and just like make videos. And then like how all of his challenges that he did because he knew like what worked. The fact that he's quite literally, I would say he's probably the only person that ever cracked the YouTube algorithm, like to its fullest extent. And the fact that he was able to figure that out is insane to me.
Yeah, I think he's proved that it can be done.
Yeah.
It's not just guesswork. And I think he inspired a lot of people to start looking at analytics and metrics and stuff, because he's obviously so obsessed with that. Um, but what I was going to say is that when you're going into a partnership or hiring someone as an employee, it's actually better to hire someone that has one of the things that you're lacking. So I sent Pavin last night an email that had like the three pillars of business. This was from an Alex Hormozy video. I'm not smart enough to know the three pillars, but he is. So it was like, it's like customer acquisition, fulfillment, and operations. And so, I feel that I obviously do all the fulfillment right now, so I'm capable of that. Pavin's going to be coming on because as the workload increases, it's going to get difficult, and I still want time to sleep. But it's like, okay, what's the thing that I am not really good at here? And it was customer acquisition. So I sent him the email last night, and that's another thing I'm big on. Like, we definitely need to communicate what we want from each other, and just even in your personal life, like people just don't communicate and they wonder why people don't know what they want. So I sent him an email last night and just said, I definitely want help with the customer acquisition, and I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. And yeah, I think moving forward, it's gonna be easy for us to work together. So I'm excited.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna try and do this every Friday, maybe every other Friday, just depending on how much of a hassle this damn setup is. It was hard today, I'm gonna be honest. Like straight up 30 minutes of horrid audio.
And then it didn't even work, but
Yeah.
we figured it out.
It's May 12th, 2023, and business is good, life is good. Pavin,
Yes, sir. I think that's all I can match. Yeah.
see you soon.
See ya.